Really excited about today. The past 2 days, we really think you guys saw what happened today, and we feel like we got. One of the things we talk about is trying to get this team bigger, stronger, faster, tougher, and we feel in the last 2 days we have certainly gotten bigger, stronger, faster, tougher, created quality depth and quality competition throughout the football team. As you saw today, we in the second round we took Jeff Allen from the University of Illinois, and then just got another offensive lineman, another starter, another big, strong, fast, tough guy in Donald Stevenson from Oklahoma. And as we talked about upstairs, we're excited about both these picks. We've created more competition on our offensive line and depth, and there's going to be a lot of players, you know, fighting for positions and making themselves better and their teammates better. So I'll throw it out to questions.
When you pick tonight specifically,
yeah.
When do you envision them being ready to play?
Well, that'll
seriously compete for a job.
Well, I think truthfully, I think they'll come in and compete immediately for positions, and they're both really good players. You know, in the case of Jeff Allen, this is a guy who's a 4-year starter at the University of Illinois, and he played both right and left tackle. He's played in both stances. He knows he has the ability to also play guard. What we feel these guys do also, Adam, is both of them have a great deal of versatility. So the good news is that they're going to be able to seriously compete and push players ahead of them, you know, for jobs right away. You know, we expect that they're immediately going to come in and push people for playing time.
Allen will start, at least initially, guard. I mean, not start, but
you know, I think we'll
guard it initially.
We'll figure. I think we'll more than likely. Again, I can't say right now today before they even line up on the field. I think we'll sort some of that out in the mini camps and the rookie camps, and once they get in here and get in with the program. But again, his body type it's right on the verge in terms of his height and length. It's right on the verge of the minimum for an offensive tackle, but it's perfect for the guard and right on the minimum. So, but again, this is a guy who's played both right and left tackle, and we certainly feel he has the ability to play guard. So a guy who's going to come in, and again, because he's played both sides, he has a chance to play guard, and he also has a chance to be a swing tackle.
But you don't really, back here, you don't really necessarily think that your Brandon Albert or Eric Winston are going to be challenged for playing time and tackle, do you?
For playing time and tackle? No, but I think we'll be creating depth. Okay. And again, here's the other thing we learned this year, and we feel that we're finally in a spot where we can bring guys in and we're creating quality depth. Now, guys, because we hope that, you know, it's Brandon Albert and Eric Winston. I mean, that's what we expect and that's what we hope. And these players that we just drafted are quite aware of that as well. But what we need to do, we're finally in a position where we can start drafting players that are quality depth and also competing for other positions, because both of these guys, you know, Donald Stevenson is a guy who's only started 2 years at Oklahoma, and he has the ability to play both left and right tackle. He is not as advanced as Jeff is, and doesn't have as much experience, and obviously that's why we took Jeff before we took Donald. And so right away they come in and they'll be pushing for, again, they're going to give us depth. And we want to have depth. But to answer the question, we don't expect that they're going to come in and beat guys out right away, but they'll be coming in and competing against other players that are backups.
Is Stevenson strictly a tackle, though?
Stevenson is a tackle. He's a tackle, but he can play both sides. He's played left tackle at Oklahoma for Stoops, but his experience is mostly left tackle. But as we found out, you know, we need someone. This is going to be this young player with only 2 years of college experience. Having depth at this position is only going to help us. That if God forbid something happens, you know, we're starting to create more depth along, you know, throughout the football team.
Did you plan on building offensive depth this early in the draft, or did that just kind of materialize as the draft went on?
You know, it happens as it goes on. You know, you go into these drafts thinking or sometimes even hoping that certain things happen, and you can't control what the other 31 teams are doing. Did we expect this to happen? No. I know this. I know we went into this day today hoping that we were going to have a shot at Jeff Allen. He was a player we were really very excited about. When the day started, we said we know we're picking, I think it was 12th today. that we hope that Jeff Allen is available when it's our turn to pick. And there were a couple of other players that we really liked that started to go, and Jeff was there, and that's why I think we turned that card in pretty quickly. We weren't even going to sit and wait to take calls in terms of trades. But we don't necessarily know how it's going to evolve. You know, there could have been, like for instance yesterday, there wasn't the normal run on tackles in the first round that there usually is. There also wasn't that run on corners. So you go into things thinking that they, again, from a historical standpoint, that they're going to go a certain way, but they didn't really go that way this year. So the tackle thing was different. You just have to be prepared, thoughtful, and be able to react and willing to react.
Every GM, every coach wants depth. And live and die by it, basically. Offensive line, you're going to keep 10 or 11 on an active roster. You got your 5, what look like your 5 starters. You got now these 2 young guys. That's 7 spots. You got nobody on your roster, I think, who's played an NFL game as a backup.
Who's played as a backup?
Who's played an NFL game other than your starters?
Oh, okay, I got you.
That's no experience depth.
That's correct.
Do you need to take that next step as well? Because I know you want to create competition, but if one of your starters goes down and you're grabbing a guy that's never played before.
Mm-hmm. But you got to start playing sometime. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, that you got to start playing sometimes. So, but that's not to say, you know, Bob, here's the other thing is, that's not to say free agency is still going on. You know what I mean? There's a number of veteran players available still out there at a lot of positions, and when we get done with the draft, right, again, maybe that's 8 players, depending on if there's trades or not, and then there's rookie free agency. Remember, the roster is going to be able to go to 90 this year. So there's a chance we're not done with the veteran free agency. There's still things going to happen now. As we know, what happens after every draft, you're going to see there's players that are out there that were unrestricted free agents that haven't signed yet. There's players that have been cut recently, and what's going to happen after this weekend, more than likely, unfortunately for some veteran players, is they're going to be released. Then there's going to be releases at June 1. So this roster isn't set. There's a lot of time between now and September.
Not to get off track of the draft, but you seem to have a lot of success signing guys who weren't supposed to be UFAs. You know, they get all the way from Thomas Jones to Boss to Winston. Do you seek those guys out more than maybe just the UFA that knew he was going to be a free agent?
I think it's a combination of things. It's knowing the league, knowing the players, and when you play against a number of the players that we have signed as street free agents that have been cut, so to speak. You know, in the case of these other players, are players that we knew pretty well. The other thing is, Bob, where this comes into play for us, something that I try to be cognizant of and make sure the organization is cognizant of, is the whole idea of compensatory picks and that whole formula. And for instance, this year, with some of the unrestricted free agent losses that we've had for the player like Brandon Carr, because of the contract and the play time that he's likely to get, that should net a certain level draft pick, as should Kyle Orton. But what happens is if you sign other unrestricted free agents, they cancel one another out. If you sign a player that was released from another team, that doesn't work into the formula of the compensatory. So to me, it has a value. Are you going to sign player X for this amount of money and lose a third-round pick next year? That's part of the consideration, I think, that we try to be thoughtful about.
How did Winston's addition change the board, the approach to drafting offensive line? Because there's obviously still an emphasis you wanted to take advantage of, but he would help that depth as well.
Right. Well, I think when the season ended and Barry became an unrestricted free agent, and the fact that, you know, the depth we were playing with at that, you know, at the tackle position, not, you know, with the swing tackle, when he became available, he was a player that it did change the outlook on the draft. And that's part of the beauty of free agency, and that's part of, you know, not only unrestricted free agency, but just overall free agency. So when he became available player, obviously we liked it quite a bit, fit the mold of exactly what we were looking for as a player and makeup-wise. And it allowed us, once again, we went into this draft not feeling as pushed into a corner necessarily on the offensive line that we might have had we not signed Eric. So I think it certainly did play into this because it's one of those situations you don't want to be. Then now we're sitting there in this situation where we're doing what is maybe more best player available in our minds. And that's you try to work to that place where you're doing more of the best players available, creating depth and getting good players. And I think yesterday's pick was more. My feeling is I always want us to be in a situation where we're doing drafting with the idea that it's a combination of best player available and need to a degree. And I think yesterday we were fortunate enough where drafting the nose, we felt that this something for going to our fourth season has been an unstable position. There's been a lot of change. There's been we've never felt strongly that was taken care of for now and in the future. So yesterday's move in drafting the nose, I think, impacted us doing something that was certainly a need.
Couple more guys. Were you trying to move at all to get extra picks today, or did anything materialize? More today?
We talked to some people, and a really interesting thing was yesterday. It seemed like the movement in the first round. There was so much movement in the first round. All of the old trade charts went out the window, and the ability to move up higher in the draft was at an unbelievable discount. So no one really knew what to expect in the second and third round. But as today started, the actual cost in terms of picks and movement in slots was stronger in the second round and was costing more in the second round than it cost in the first round. So it was a really bizarre dynamic. When we started talking to people about possibly moving up, because we were talking about the possibility, we knew we wanted Jeff Allen. Then tackles started going. We were saying, okay, he's going to go at some point in time. But we saw some of the prices that people were asking. It was like, whoa, wait a second here. Yesterday people moving around in the first round not even looking for that. So we had some conversations about possibly moving up. Then when we were on the clock, we got a couple of calls. Like I said, I didn't even pick up the phone when we got to the pick where we took Jeff, and with Donald, there were a couple of calls that came in. But again, this was another person. When you feel comfortable about sending the card in, and you don't know how far you can go back and still get a player that you really like, that's what you have to sit there and kind of balance a little bit.
Last question. Scott, could you just talk about the value of...
one more.
I'm sorry about that. Could you just talk about the value of the player that you can get in rounds 4 through 7? I mean, going into that final day where you like the Ryan Suckups, or not to go back to the Tom Brady again, but the guys that you can get obviously in the later rounds.
Yeah, and rookie free agency. And this is the part of it that's great about this whole NFL thing. There's going to be a bunch of players drafted tomorrow throughout the NFL, rounds 4 through 7, and then some group of guys that are signed afterwards. And it's a reminder, keeps myself and 31 other guys doing my job, and 32 head coaches and every scout in America, keeps us all humble, because it reminds us how much we don't know. And that's the truth. And as much work as you do, there's guys out there, there's certain things, and again, it's cliche, and there's certain things you can't measure. And there's players that, at different stages in life, mature physically, mentally, emotionally, and develop at different rates. There's going to be a number of guys picked tomorrow that no one has any idea who they are. And there was guys that were picked today in the third round where you're sitting there and they were picked, and you're like, who's this guy? Or you're trying to, recall. I mean, you know who he is, but you're trying to remember more. And he's going to be a star in the league. And it's a great thing in sports. I mean, it really is. There'll be someone picked tomorrow. There'll be someone not picked tomorrow that embarrasses all of us a couple of years from now.